Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another edition of Broncos Beat. I'm Alexis Perry, and joining me to discuss the latest developments at the right tackle position and all of the biggest storylines surrounding the Broncos before they take the field later this week for their very first padded practice. We have Cecil Lammey from 104.3 The Fan, Jeff Legwold from ESPN, and James Palmer from the NFL Network. You guys, the biggest news that broke since the last episode of Broncos Beat was that right tackle Ja'Wuan James has officially opted out of the 2020 season, leaving a massive hole on the right side of that offensive line. While it seems like Elijah Wilkinson would be the most obvious person to fill that role, the idea that Dalton Risner could actually move to the right tackle position has been floated out there. So I love a good hypothetical to start this show. So hypothetically speaking, what would be some of the pros and cons if Dalton Risner moved to right tackle?
Well, Alexis, I think it would be a stopgap move if he played at right tackle. I mean, it's interesting that Risner is, for the Broncos, projected to be a guard forever, future team captain. They'd love to see him go to a Pro Bowl or two or three at guard, and he did not play at guard in college. He was a center and he was a tackle. So I think that versatility is what they're looking at, that if something happens in a game, what would you do? Because you only have 7, perhaps most games in uniform. So the fact he can play 3 positions and right tackle is now one of those, I think that's what they're looking at. I think they prefer to leave him at guard to play, and if something happens in a game, then they could move him around a little bit.
It's the versatility and it's the intelligence that you see from Dalton Risner. And really, when you look at this offensive line, Lloyd Cushenberry, high intelligence, Eli Wilkinson, high intelligence, and Dalton Risner, maybe the smartest guy on that offensive line. And that's a con for me because I want him next to Garrett Bowles. He's almost another coach on the offensive line, just as a reminder of what to do. Here's your blocking assignment, all those sorts of things. And when we saw the improvement over the last 5 games with Drew Lock from Garrett Bowles, well, I think Dalton Risner should get some of that credit as well for helping out his teammate to his left. So I like the fact that he can play multiple positions, but I really like him at left guard with Bowles as your left tackle.
Yeah, Cecil, you're exactly right. Nothing makes a coaching staff more excited than a guy who stays after practice to take snaps at center, who's your starting left guard, who takes mental notes about how to play the right tackle spot, just so he's ready at all these things. These are all compliments for Dalton Risner, the type of player he is. And Cecil says maybe the smartest guy on the offensive line. I'll say he is the smartest guy on the offensive line. And the other part of this that to me is a con is, and Cecil touched on it, Garrett Bowles has gone through so much change as he's gone through that left tackle spot. Look at the different offensive line coaches he's had, the different offenses he's had. I think keeping things consistent for him, if you want to get the most out of your left tackle as you can, it's keeping Dalton Risner next to him because of that intelligence. He has another year with Mike Munchak. I just think you're getting worse at 2 spots, or you're weakening 2 positions by moving Dalton Risner. I think just that interior of the offensive line, to me, could be a strength of this team if Lloyd Cushenberry pans out to the way some people are thinking. You have Graham Glasgow, which somebody we haven't mentioned as we've all started talking, and Dalton Risner. The interior could be a good spot, and I don't think you want to mess with that, but it's a good thing to know that this is a guy smart enough that if you had to throw him in there, I think he'd probably do a pretty decent job.
Well, the Broncos, they brought in longtime Buccaneer right tackle DeMar Dotson for a visit over the weekend. And at the time of filming this show on Monday morning, nothing has become official yet. Cecil, I know you reached out to somebody close to the situation recently. What's the word on Dotson?
Yeah, I reached out to Buccaneers sources, and they just go on and on about how he's a great guy. He's a great teammate. He is self-made. He played defensive tackle in college, but they thought of his basketball skill set working out at right tackle, and that, maybe at this point in his career, he's slowing down a bit, but he can still be a solid starter for the next year or 2. So if you were to reach out and say, hey, just tell me, what do you know about this guy, to get back those type of glowing reports, I think is a very good sign, and it would be a very good signing if the Broncos were to get Dotson.
And I'll jump in real quick, Alexis, on that. I'm down here in Tampa. That's why we have this whole new look for me down here as I'm living this, Florida life. everybody in the Bucs organization absolutely loves this guy. And it's a guy that they wish was still there, a part of that organization as they're turning the corner. He's been through so much now that they have Tom Brady and company. I think it's a veteran on an offensive team that is so young, a guy that has been around and been consistently healthy, I think, most of his career too. I think those two parts would be a nice addition to an offensive line that is in need. And with Jawan James going kind of back and forth for some time and the Broncos knowing it about opting out, I'm curious why they didn't start bringing people in maybe for visits just a little bit sooner.
Yeah, James, I mean, this is the question at the position the whole time. I mean, they took the pass in the draft, they took the pass in free agency, and I mean, all of you know, other than quarterback, there may be no more difficult position to find on the street than a tackle who can play in the league. There are so few. Dotson is the best option still unsigned at this point. And the reason he's unsigned is he's going to be 35 in October. So, he did start 15 games last season. So it's not like he's coming in with a resume of injury or something, but his age and, the league is a funny place. When the team that's had you for 11 seasons doesn't re-sign you, there's always this question sort of floating around you. And the Buccaneers can talk about how much they'd like him there, but they had the choice to keep him, and they didn't.
If Dotson or another free agent doesn't come in to fill that right tackle position, is there still going to be a competition at the left tackle position between Bowles and Wilkinson?
I continue to be told Elijah Wilkinson's going to play at right tackle right now, at least for the moment. So, until we see them on the field in a formation, we can't really say what the rotation's going to be. But I continue to be told, even if Dotson is signed, that Wilkinson's going to get the first look at right tackle, and they're going to go from there. And I think the competition with Bowles and Wilkinson was overinflated when Vic Fangio said it in April, and I continue to think that they never intended it to be a competition. They think he could play better with Locke at quarterback and with Munchak as his coach.